feedback and those who weren't able to make it today, and some socioeconomic information in case there happens to be a small business set aside or a specific small business set aside. Okay, real quick over the requirement. Don't get too wrapped up around these numbers. We have a spreadsheet, the Excel document I have breaks everything out. So our requirement, our soldiers are in 20 locations across Nebraska, mostly Grand Island or Hastings in the east. We have about 3,000 soldiers who need to have their clothing altered or patches sewn on. Each soldier is going to have 5 pieces of clothing, 2 bottoms and 3 tops. The females will have one pair of trousers and 1 skirt, as opposed to the males who have 2 pairs of trousers. Only 2 items need anything sewed on. That is the coat. There is 3 to 7, maybe 8 patches. And then each soldier has 2 shirts, a long sleeve and a short sleeve. And those will have 2 patches sewed on them. So before the breakout, our estimated numbers are 16,500 alterations and then 27,000 patches. After the slides, I'll show you my breakout of where everything is. Any questions yet?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Yolanda Diaz from Little Miss Fashion. Thank you for your service. So some years ago, I used to fix military uniforms. My husband was in Nebraska National Guard for him and his friends. And I learned that there are so many specific regulations that I had to follow. So you will provide the manual for show us how to do that or so?
Yes, great question. We will provide the manual that shows the location for the patches to be sewn on and any specifics to the alterations. Yes.
Perfect, thank you. It was my main concern, so thank you very much.
Yep, we will provide all of that. Okay.
Mr. Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much, Jared. I want to know, do we have to meet the soldiers face to face for the alterations, or is it something that we just get it already in a big bulk order and we just have to add it onto the uniforms?
Great question. We're not sure yet. So one of my questions for you guys is do you need the soldier to try on the clothing to know what the measurements are to do the alterations? Or could you be sent the pair of pants or whatever with the specific measurements?
Either or. So what my expertise is, I have a couple of friends of mine from college. They are fashion designers, and they have basically, they still have all the heavy equipment to do alterations, do patches. I myself have been sewing since I was in kindergarten. So I definitely know how to sew. I know how to do patches. And I have a little army of individuals who, part of the quilting world, friends who are former designers. And so, I've reached out to them to let them know, hey, if I get this government contract, would you be willing to assist me? So yes, I have enough people to answer your question. We can do the alterations if you say this person is a 32 by 34, if the pants are kind of like Italian suits where, you have to have them hemmed, we can do that with the measurements. It really just depends on what the contract details are. If we don't have to meet face to face, we'll be able to execute pretty quickly. If we have to meet each soldier face to face, they're going to have a couple hot chicks, I guess, there doing alterations. So there might be some time delays. I can definitely see that happening. So it really all just depends on what you think, Mr. Jared, would be a reflection of your excellence in regards to, what you want the contract executions to really entail. Yes, but yes, we can do either or in person or
Is
we.
there a preference? Would you
Oh,
prefer to do the measurements, or I mean, just
well,
or does it matter at all?
well, if we do it in person, the contract would have to add in room and board, travel expenses. So we'll be bidding a little bit more. We would have to, have the resources to do that. So probably you said about 3,000 soldiers. So I'll do the math real quick. So if we do an 8-hour day, we'll allocate about 15 minutes per soldier. So that's 4 soldiers an hour. Um, times that by 8, that's 32 soldiers a day. Times that by a 5-hour work week, that's 1,600 soldiers a week in a week. I'm gonna do that right again. So that's 4 soldiers an hour times that by 8-hour work days. So 32 soldiers a day times that by 5. That's 160 soldiers a week. So we'll take 3,000 divided by 160. So about 18.75 weeks. And we'll divide that by 4. So about 4.68 months if we had to do it in person
Okay,
versus.
let me
Yes, sir.
let let me go to the next slide where I talk to how we kind of need it to work and some of our let's say some of our limitations. So these the soldiers, one thing we can't do, we can't interrupt their training schedule because these soldiers are only here on the weekends, 1 week in a month in various locations. So I'm going to pause how we'll do it just for a second, just so I can go through the contract stuff real quick. I believe the contract mechanism will be a blanket purchase agreement. This idea of how to contract for this, whether we would like to get one contractor to run the whole state, but we are open to other ideas if that's not going to work out. Third bullet, vendor can either perform the work or sub it out. So say, for instance, your home office location's in Omaha and there's an order out in Grand Island. If you don't want to go out to Grand Island and do the measurements or do the alterations themselves, you're more than welcome to sub it out to whoever you want, whether that company is in Grand Island or not. If and when we get to a solicitation, this is going to be priced per item that we need. So let me show you remember, I will provide this when we're all done. Can everybody see my screen? Let's start out with that. Carlos, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So these are the locations where our soldiers are at. Miles from Lincoln, just so that I'm located in Lincoln, just so we can get a rough idea of where they're located across Nebraska. This is the number of soldiers per location. And then as we get into the alterations that are needed, I'm not an alterations expert, but from my understanding, the skirt, the trousers, and the coat will all come needing to be altered for the hem and the coat, the sleeve. As we get into the skirt waist, we are estimating, half of them will need to be altered. Same with the trousers. The waist, half will be altered, and the seat, we believe, is a little bit less. So these are static numbers based upon number of soldiers we have. Okay, and we get to the patches or coat. We'll have the 3 to 7 patches, and every soldier has a coat. Then 2 shirts per soldier with 2 patches per shirt. So hence our final numbers and based on location. So approximately 16,500 pieces of clothing need to be altered and 27,000 patches. There's a little notes section here breaking it down a little bit more. Any questions on that before I go back to the slides?
No, no question, not for me.
Okay.
Thank you. Your excellent PowerPoint is up to par. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So how will it work? How will this work? To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure. I have an idea, or at least a general idea. So a unit would do their normal training on the weekend, and let's say they happen to be they're in Grand Island doing their training. In a perfect world, um, the contractor, whether they do it themselves or they sub it out, would mobilize and come out and take our measurements. That Jimmy needs his pair of pants hemmed to a 34, and Johnny needs his coat hemmed to a whatever that may be.
Yeah,
When we make
it can be done if we just get a good team to help us to take measurement and everything we need, and we can just short the times to do that. So I think it will be okay.
Okay, so while these guys are doing their training on the weekend, we were thinking, Saturday, Sunday, however it's going to work out, maybe for a block of a few hours, we just run the soldiers through. They have their clothing, they have their patches in a little bag. The patches should be sewn on the same place, so there shouldn't be any variance there. There'll be some different patches based on rank and whatever else, but all that stuff will be static. And then take the measurements for the clothing. When you're done taking the measurements, you could take the clothing back to your shop, wherever that may be located, and then perform all the alterations. So that's a pretty broad stroke. So we anticipate on the second bullet, the Army, the clothing is starting to come in to the units. So once we get enough, we don't know what that number is yet, we would make an order to the contractor, giving the contractor 30 days prior to having to come out, minimum of 30 days. The order will have that location, the time frame, like when to show up, what time to show up, and a specific list of clothing to be altered per soldier. And then the vendor would confirm that they can do that. This is a BPA, so that's an agreement. It's not a contract, blanket purchase agreement. So there is potential that if we place an order, the contractor could say, I can't do it on that weekend. Maybe it has to be a different weekend, or could sub it out at that same time. Again, vendor takes all the measurements, picks up the clothing, all the patches. Vendor goes back and performs all the alterations, and then the items are returned, and the vendor would then perform the invoice based upon the order form that we gave, so we should know exactly what was altered, other than a few of those estimated things like the trouser waist and seat.
Okay, sounds good.
So any questions on that?
So far, no. So I think yes, in the way we have just figured out. But for me, yes, it's like getting enough people to help us to do, and I'm available anytime you need me to be in any place. So we are just ready for that at the time you need it.
Okay. And if you notice on here, I also don't have how long to return the items. That's part of what I want to gauge from you guys. And we're not going to have the numbers, but what's a fair amount of time? 30 days to do a whole. If we go back to this spreadsheet, and
Yeah,
let's pick a unit here. So Columbus, they have 112 soldiers. So what would be a fair amount of time, assuming we could even get all of that clothing and all the soldiers show up? We're probably looking at maybe 75 soldiers and their clothing. So what would be a fair amount of time? 30 days, 60 days? Anybody?
So, I mean, are you giving us dates, deadline for finish that, or you are asking us how much time we need for?
I'm asking how much time you need.
Oh, okay. Well, it depends for me. If you need like to finish that amount of pieces in a month, that's fine for me because I can get enough people to help me. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Is anybody else? Is there, I'm trying to gauge how long it takes to do this stuff.
I would concur, Mr. Jarrett, 30 days to 60 days. If we do it in blocks of per town, per the number of people, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to execute. Like for example, Columbus, Nebraska, 75 people to 112 people. Other towns, number 10 looks like 400 people. So really, it's just basically setting up each town to do an event, and really, once things are more solidified, able to put a team together. Looks like number 7. That's a 420 people. Looks like the most on the list.
These are miles from Lincoln, so these are our soldiers.
Oh, okay. I
So
see.
the biggest one would be 859 soldiers.
Okay.
And we understand, we definitely understand that that would probably be unfeasible or not possible to do on the weekend to take measurements of 859 soldiers. There are specific units in there. So we're hoping that we just get a unit done at a time, but it's going to be there's going to be some feeling out between the contractor and between us. Like, what's your capacity? Can you come out and, are you going to be, can you do this once a month and then have like a 60-day turnaround time? Can you do it once a quarter and then have a 60 or 90-day turnaround time?
I mean, it can vary depending on the alteration every uniform needs. So it's at that time we can just figure out how long it will take for us to do that. But I mean, the other thing is we can just be prepared with helpers and equipment to do that, and it's what I'm planning to do.
Okay. I'm going to go. Here's a message. Okay. Let's say one soldier who has 2 pairs of pants, 1 coat, and 2 shirts. Can somebody estimate a time for performing the alterations? Is it, I mean, is it a day? Is it
No,
10
no.
minutes? Is it an hour?
Okay,
I don't have any idea.
for
What does it need to be done?
Well, let's say it's one male and he needs to have his trousers hemmed and let's say his waist. He doesn't need his seat. And he needs to have his coat hemmed and the sleeve and then 3 or 4 patches sewn on his coat and then 2 on his shirt. This isn't, I'm not going to hold you to this. I'm just trying to get myself in a ballpark. Is this 10 minutes worth of work or is it a full day per outfit or an hour? Or what do you think?
If it takes you a day to sew one outfit, this contract isn't for you.
Okay.
At all.
So what do you think? What do you think?
So 2 pairs of pants. I mean, depending on, we have to iron it down. Depending on what type of stitch you want us to do. It all depends on the type of standard. Can we use the fabric adhesive tape just to tape it down and then proceed with stitching that way, which is a little bit more faster? I would say if you have a good team, we're talking about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes to complete per soldier.
Okay.
Only because you're doing it by hand. I mean, or can we stitch the patches with a machine?
Oh, you can there isn't a requirement from the Army how you stitch the patches. I would say whatever's the most efficient for you. In terms of the stitching of hemming, I would have to check the regulations, but I imagine there really isn't one. So if you wanted to use tape and then stitch or whatever, I don't
For,
I'm not
for
sure on
the
that.
For the patches, it will be better if we do that in the machine, but it will take a little more time because we had to open the sleeve in order to be able to sew the patches and then close it again sew the sleeve to keep that. So it will take a little more, but it will be better in the machine, in the sewing machine.
Okay. Yeah. Christina, who is on, is my customer for this. And she says as long as the string color matches, we don't care whether it's sewn by hand or machine. So that would be up to you guys as the contractor and the experts in this. If you were to get the contract and it's easier for you to hand sew, by all means, hand sew. If it's easier for you to sew on patches with a machine, then sew them on by a machine. I don't think we're going to be too picky.
Well, two ways.
I guess the only question is if we don't have to open up the back part, is there going to be an issue with the patches, with the stitching on the inside of the jacket? Is that going to be a problem?
It will be a problem if you don't open up the sleeve. It's better open up the sleeve and sew it. Even by hand, it will be a problem. So the other one that are on front, it's not big deal, but the sleeve, yes, you have to. I mean, for me, it's better if we open up the sleeve and do it on the machine.
I believe the patches on the coat are all on the arms.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There are no patches on the front or back
Okay.
or shoulders or anything. They are on the arms.
And
Same
what
for the
about
shirts, in fact.
what about the name?
What are their names of the
Mm-hmm.
patches?
Yeah, it will be in front or on the sleeve.
It'll be on the sleeves.
Oh,
So
okay.
you have,
Yeah,
yes,
it will
all
take
the
time.
patches are on the sleeves.
It will
Okay.
take time because we had to open up the sleeve and put the patches and then sewing again, and it will take a little bit. But I think the best thing we can do is just look for a good team, training them before we start doing just starting on the job.
Okay. Christina has said on the coat, there's going to be rank on each sleeve, service stripes, a unit patch, and a deployment patch.
Hmm.
And those should be the same throughout. Some soldiers won't have a deployment patch, or some may have a few more service stripes, but should all be about the same. So I'll take your answer to about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour per uniform.
Maybe 1 hour for uniform.
Okay. Okay. This document, Carlos, can you see my document change?
Yes.
Okay. This document is the questions that were provided from the field to Carlos. So I just want to go through them real quick. First question, number of garments, put that on the spreadsheet. Turnaround time, I think we just talked about that. Approximately an hour per full uniform. How far in advance will you know when you need to take measurements? We'll give you at least 30 days. Process to get on the base. The Lincoln Air Base is the most challenging, but it's not impossible. It's last name, first name, middle initial. And security does run a soft background check to make sure you're who you say you are. The other locations aren't quite as challenging as this one. Most of them will be just showing your a valid ID at the gate and then meeting with the Army POC at the front of the building, and then they'll take you in. What's the time frame for this? I'm sorry?
I have the last question.
Okay.
In the case we need to take the measurement, how many people we can just take with us to help in every military base?
Yeah. I mean, in theory, you could bring as many people as you want. I don't know if
Okay.
we would put a limit on it. I mean, if we get into, 100 people, we may not do that, but a handful of people, 10 people, I don't think.
Okay. Perfect.
I think the limitation may be how much room do we have? I'm guessing the soldier's gonna need to try this on, so we're gonna have to have a room set up so people can try on and measure. So that would probably be our bigger limitation than number of people you could bring.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep. Time frame, fall, winter, spring, year round. The uniforms are just, like I said, are just starting to ship. So we anticipate trying to get a contract or a blanket purchase agreement in place and work through all those details, get it awarded to a contractor, and then start ordering spring, maybe summer of next year.
Okay.
Are there military specs on how the uniform should fit? Yes, they are in a manual. We will provide those manuals to you. In my experience fixing military uniforms, I learned specific regulations for names and patches. Yes, they do go in a certain spot, a quarter inch from this thing and a half inch from that thing. We will provide all of that. Have the regulations changed? I'm not sure what the time frame of the question is, but we will provide you with the most updated manual. Number 10, oops. Are we going to measure each soldier or the measurement's going to be included with each uniform? We don't have the expertise to measure uniforms. So I think our preference is that industry provides or does the measurements and then the alterations. There is potential that we could try to get the measurements beforehand and then bring the uniforms to you, but I think our preference would be that you guys take the measurements. Number 11, if we measure individually, how many soldiers can be available per day? So we know how many people to bring and speed up the process. So as we're waiting for these to come in, we will make orders based upon when we have a large number of soldiers in a location with most, if not all, of their uniforms. This isn't going to be a perfect thing where we can do an entire unit and they'll have all of their stuff on one weekend. We recognize there could be multiple trips to a location to get all the soldiers. But we also want to be aware of a minimum requirement from you guys. Obviously, driving out from wherever you are to Grand Island to measure and alter one pair of pants is not economical. So we plan on trying to maximize this to give you guys as much business as possible per order while trying to balance minimizing interruptions of training time as well.
Excellency, Mr. Jared, are you still there?
I am.
All right, sir. Well, let's recalculate that. It looks like the execution timeline of 30 days per 1 hour per
Yep.
soldier. It really kind of calculates at 3.75 weeks. So what I did was I took 40 uniforms per week, an hour per each uniform, times that by 4. I'm sorry, 40 times that by 4. That's, oh my gosh, 40 times that by 4. That's 160. And then I took 3,000 divided by 160. Then that's 18.75. Divide that by 4 weeks. Sorry, that's 4.6875 months is what it comes out to be. So that kind of that's kind of the turnaround time. So I'd say about 5 months for 3,000 uniforms is
Yeah,
kind of.
our guess is you'll probably get anywhere from maybe 50 to 150 uniforms at a time. That's a very, very rough guess, is what you would get at a time. Part of that would be to um, minimize interruptions of training time, and part of that is going to be, is the soldier here to be measured, and part of that will also be, does the soldier have their pieces of uniform to even be measured? But with that, go ahead.
Christina wants to add something.
Oh yeah, jump on in.
Okay, thank you so much. This is Christina. So I just want to clarify, while it would be great to have all 3,000 at one time, the contract timeframe that we're looking at is approximately closer to 1 to 3 years, because the Army only gives us a certain amount of funding to purchase the uniforms. And then we are subject to supply and demand when the uniforms are shipped to us, as well as Jared said, which is the training schedules. So even if we have, let's say, Wahoo, they I think are one of our higher units that have most of their uniforms ordered. While they're on order, they all haven't shipped just yet. So we could possibly get, somewhere close 50 to 80% of all the uniforms located there and shipped. But it really just depends on when the unit has 100%. So there's a couple of ways that we could go about this, and since we're really trying to maximize the contractor's time and respect the contractor's time, one of the questions that we're hoping to get out of this is, what is the indicator for the contractor side that would facilitate going to Wahoo and providing the sewing? We're not requiring that the sewing jobs be completed the same day or the same week that you take measurements. We anticipate it taking quite a long, as the other gentleman was saying. I'm sorry, I missed your name, sir. But I'm looking at this from a procedural aspect as well, and I think if you come out and you take, let's say, 70 pieces of garments, that you're allowed 2 to 3 months to conduct that, and then when you come out again to drop those off, hopefully we would have more soldiers uniforms ready, and it's kind of an ebb and flow process versus, okay, all of our soldiers at this location have their uniforms, here's all of their uniforms, and be able to sew it at one time. Hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It helps.
Yes, great point. I should have mentioned that I'm a little fuzzy on when the soldiers need to start wearing these uniforms, but it is 3 years down the road, roughly. So this blanket purchase agreement with the contractor, this would be our total number of stuff over those 3 years until we get obviously everything done.
That's a long time, Miss Christina. October 2027. I mean, I know it's going to be here pretty quickly, but okay. Well, I was not expecting that at all, but that's really good to know that we'll have that long of an execution timeline to complete the order. I guess that's the final question I have for you both is, if we have a physical location for soldiers to come to, will that be beneficial or not beneficial?
Probably not, and that would go back to, we're talking 3,000 soldiers and trying to move them across the state to a single location. There'd be a lot of cost in that, and loss of training time, which I don't know if our leadership is going to go for, which is where we're going to lean on you guys and pay for the convenience of you guys mobilizing, being a smaller force, taking the measurements, and then performing the alterations, and then 60, 90 days later, return the uniforms. Okay, I'll keep going. Number 12, are we going to get the uniforms shipped to us, or we need to go and get them? Probably the latter is what we're looking at, so that you can measure the soldier with the piece of with the uniform, and then you take off with the uniform and then perform the alteration. Number 13, are shipping costs included in the final price, or will it be separate? We're not sure how to approach this at this time. Ideally, as Christina said, like every quarter you go out to Wahoo and take what you picked up last month and then take new measurements. Shipping the items, I think there would be a tremendous cost in that. 3,000 full uniforms. So we're going to kind of shy away from that, but we are aware of, where some of these soldiers could be located. Another possible solution, especially for the cities that are way out west, would be that maybe their uniforms are dropped off here in Lincoln. We do have transportation around the state that hauls equipment around, and we could put some of those uniforms on that. That's potential. Yeah, we don't have an answer to that yet. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for everything. That doesn't seem like it'd be a problem to hand deliver it. I guess my only question is in delivery, they take pictures of everything. So in the quality control aspect, will we need to take pictures of the completed aspect of each item? And then if we did ship it, or do we have it delivered, which I think it'd be best. I mean, to ship something will be astronomical, like you said.
Yes.
So we'll probably just have, a secured person, wrap it up in a large enough type of box and whatnot. But I guess my question for you is, how beneficial is it for us, just so that if there's any problems, or just to make sure that we did a exceptional job on our workmanship? Is it beneficial for us to take pictures of each item, so that if there's any questions, we'll be able to execute those matters, and be able to have everything up to par, so if something happens in the shipping aspect, like it gets ripped or something, I mean, I don't think shipping's going to be the best thing. We're going to have someone drop it off, because
Yeah, it'd just be too cost prohibitive. I mean, I could see, maybe for those long distance units, whoever's out in Shattering, maybe we pay a per mileage, something per mile to return them. That idea has been floated. In terms of taking pictures, that would be a decision up to your business practice. If you felt you needed to do that, it wouldn't be a requirement of the contract. The way a firm fixed price contract works to the federal government, once you're registered to do business and Carlos has helped you get all set up, the assumption is that if you say you can do the work, you can do the work. And it's up to us to prove you wrong. So we would assume if you're bidding, if you give us a proposal on this or a quote on this, that you can do the work. And so we give you the item and you do the work, and then it shows up and it should be fine. Obviously, there can be errors and things like that, and we would just ask that you redo it if there happens to be a problem.
Thank you, Sir Excellence.
Yep. 14, how many uniforms on average we must do on a monthly basis, so I know the personnel I have to hire or keep on hand? As we spoke to, this is kind of an unknown. I would like to. Is there a question? Okay. I am if I had to put you guys on the spot for how many full uniforms does it make it worth your while? So, for instance, in whatever city you're located in, let's pretend we have soldiers there and they have all their uniforms. There has to be a point where, going out and doing one uniform, you're not going to make a lot of money off that. Doing a 3,000 uniforms, there could be some money made. But what would be what if anybody would like to, what number could incentivize you? So say we get down the road and we're in a perfect world. We recognize that there needs to be a minimum number of uniforms for you guys to come out. Would anybody like to put a number to that? Would it be like 25 uniforms? We want to be, as Christina said, respectful of your time. We don't want to ask you to come out and do one pair of pants. We want to have a whole bunch of stuff ready for you. Could anybody get us in a ballpark? 10 uniforms, 50 uniforms, 100?
For me, it doesn't matter the amount of uniforms. So in some places more than another one. So it's not a big deal for me.
Okay.
Personally, I would prefer more product.
Yes.
If we're able to have an abundance, that really gave us how I operate my team is, if we have more to do, we'll be willing to focus in on, executing it ahead of schedule, just so that you guys can focus on your training and
Sure.
really just solidify the contract because, there's, I believe, 1 million soldiers. So, you can either take the slow road, or if you're able to execute and actually have a beneficial operation that is going to, make your job easier. I personally would project just off of just the numbering now, including travel, paying people, sewing machine, facility costs. I would say per soldier, it looks like maybe around in between $300 and $400 per soldier to do their uniform. That should, if we're going to be on base and able to be on base and, get things done there, or if we have to transport, a huge order, that means we have to have larger trucks. We have to have trailers to put the stuff on. If not, a moving truck to put all of those uniforms on. And then, there's the quality control. We have to have those uniforms in a clean environment, no moisture, no rain, no moss, no mildew, no pets type of things. So there's a lot of other things that play into factor of just when you start working. So that's kind of what it looks like to me. But I mean, that's
Okay.
just a rough, I mean, like I said, that I could be off on those numbers, but if we just had to show up, take measurements, and then the time it takes to get everything done and pay people, it looks like 300 to 400 per uniform. It may be more depending on gas, inflation.
Sure. Yeah, there's all kinds. I definitely don't need, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot in terms of dollars. I'm more curious.
Jared, can you hear me? I think we lost you. Bear with me, guys. We'll give him a second to log back in.
Hey, this is Jeremy Ruprecht. I'm in the office with Jared, just in a different area. He lost connection. He'll be back on in just a few minutes.
Copy.
Carlos.
We can hear you now.
Oh man, I think all the all the National Guard people got kicked off. Okay. Um, this next document, I'm going to try to go quick on. This is our sources sought. We're looking for specific business information from you guys, who you are, what your capabilities are. I do have 10 yes.
You share your screen.
Ah. All right, how about now? Okay. Carlos, you see my screen?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. This is the sources sought form. I know not everybody had the capability to be at the meeting or maybe to answer or ask questions. So what I would like to ask is that you guys fill this out. Let me know a little information about your company here, in case there happens to be a small business set aside or a 8A or a service disabled veteran owned. Down here we have 10 questions. And we would like input from all of you guys, as you guys are the industry experts in this. And whatever other feedback you guys have, there's another section down here that you can type in whatever you want. We do ask for your name and who you are and your company so that we can continue communications and try to figure out a way forward. I know we're creeping up on an hour, so I'm not going to go into the questions, but I will provide these documents to Carlos and he can send them out to you guys. And I'll provide my email address so that you can respond. Is there any other questions at this time?
For me, no, any other. Everything is clear so far.
Okay. Anybody else?
Muchas gracias, Senor Carlito, and Mr. Jared and Miss Christina. You've been the best. Thank you for your excellence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mhm.
Okay. Carlos, I'll get these sent over to you and then they can email them back directly to me. Anybody have anything else?
Is your email going to be in the chat list so we can write it down real quick?
I'll give it to Carlos. It's super long and complicated, so I'll give it to Carlos with the documents, and when he sends it out, he can send it at that time.
All right. Thank you, Sir Excellence, for everything. You're the best.
Thank you much. Okay, well, we appreciate your time, and we're going to thank you in advance for all of your input on this. This is a very important requirement to the Nebraska National Guard, as our soldiers are getting new dress uniforms, and we need to get them fitted and altered and all the patches sewn on so they can continue meeting their mission. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jared. And I will get all of that paperwork squared away and email it to everybody registered and everybody here.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate your time and everybody else's.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
You too.
Thank